Hi everyone, this is an invitation for those of you who are feeling the call of these rapid evolutionary shifts that we're experiencing to join me for a free webinar that I'll be running. You simply just have to sign up for my newsletter on my website and I will send you out the details when that webinar has been made. It hasn't been created yet. But what I am noticing is that there has been a distinct shift in the collective, that many people are now stopping and starting to ask just what exactly is going on in my world, regardless of which country you're in the sense that we are experiencing a systemic collapse and in a catastrophic way, but it's now starting to accelerate and people are starting to ask, well, how do I navigate this? And are experiencing at times a feeling that they're living in some kind of modern dystopia. Now, what I see at a personal level is more and more people are starting to question the consensus, to question the narrative. And what I see, this is the mass of a collective spiritual awakening. And this is often a very misunderstood process. It is not really diagnosed very well, except for people who have been through it themselves, because they understand exactly, and to them it's very obvious. So often how this begins, but not always, is a state of confusion. That many people start to question their norm, they start to question their life, they start to question their levels of fulfillment, and they also start to question their purpose. Now, with the intense suffering that's starting to accelerate in many different countries, particularly due to economic situation, the economic turmoil, the increased inflation, and all the other economic challenges people are having with their career, that the ends just don't meet anymore with their finances, the debt, the housing crisis, all these sorts of things, that it's pushing people forwards faster into a real existential crisis, basically, where people start to question everything. Now, this is not at all to be confused with, an investigation into the power structure, whether people are looking at secret societies or the hierarchy of power or political parties or political figures or the banking system or all these sorts of things. This is a much deeper soul-touching experience than that. And there is a distinct difference, because in the general conversation around being awake, most people just simplify that into basically the world of what we can term the power structure or the global agenda, or even various conspiracy theories, whether they are in fact true or not. It's kind of irrelevant. What I'm talking about is the deepest level, and it's the most powerful level of awakening. And ultimately, it is the phase of the awakening that for many will be last, but is also the most necessary to actually experience this and embody some of the qualities of what a spiritual awakening, a true spiritual awakening, looks like. And I know all about this because I've been through it myself in the 90s. Now, it'll be the most confronting if your life is really working out for you and everything's going well, and you still feel this sense of absence, this sense that something is missing. This is the one common denominator often, that something is missing, that there is a feeling that you just can't put your finger on it, and it creates this disillusionment with the world, with yourself, with your occupation, with your relationship, with your purpose or lack of purpose. And basically that you feel that things just don't make any sense. And it can also be described as what a lot of people I see experiencing of, they just don't see the point. That sort of catchphrase, particularly that young people, I'm seeing a lot of young people are going through this. They actually, not everyone of course, but there's actually a common theme that the young people, like Generation Z, they look at society as kind of a scam, like particularly in terms of work opportunities and career, what you actually get out compared to what you put in. Now, all these things can, but not in all situations, actually are the beginning of a true spiritual awakening. That the question really that needs to be asked is, do I really need to live like this? And obviously, at a collective level, do we really need to live like this? And the answer to both those questions is no. And then the next question is, well, how do I go about changing that? Because at the core of what people are looking for is a sense of fulfillment and a sense of purpose. But even at that level, at the level of causality, they're only effects. What I'm talking about here is the cause. And the thing that is missing in our society is a connection to our soul, a connection to life purpose in the context of what the soul wants to experience, a connection to the spiritual path in itself, which has a lot of baggage in my view as what is necessary as we enter the new paradigm as to what that looks like. Because a lot of people would think, oh, a spiritual path, that's not really for me. Because they assume that there's all this, what I call performative spirituality, or even, Instagram type spirituality, that there's this appearance, that it's a performance, which is a whole different theme in terms of an astrological shift we're going through at the moment, which I'll speak about in another video, that there needs to be a certain appearance, or a certain, it's almost like a caricature of yourself, like, oh, you have to get a tattoo, or wear beads, or have crystals, or have a certain dress code, or change your name, or sell all your possessions and run away to Bali or something like that. And none of those things are necessary. But what I would say is that there are general themes that will apply to everyone, but the way people will approach it or get to that place where they realize they are going through a spiritual awakening will be very different and very unique and very personal, which I think is the beauty of it. So I'm not here to tell you that my way or my experience is the only way of doing this in any way. But what I do see are the common themes of people who feel that they don't really want to participate in society in the same way. They're not necessarily rebellious, but they're starting to question their values. And maybe it's even more, people are having a successful career, they make a lot of money, but somehow they're not happy. People aren't maybe happy in a relationship, or they have a health problem, or whatever it is. It's usually some form of suffering that actually brings people to a spiritual path and go through a spiritual awakening. It doesn't have to be that way, but it's often the way. The deepest, in my view at least, way that this will start is if a particular person starts to have a real crisis about what the meaning of life itself is. Like that they have been born onto this planet, they're living on this planet, but they don't know why they're here. This simple question of why am I here is perhaps the most deepest and the most simplest. And until we're able to answer that question, then we'll always be in a sense of lack, or something's missing, or a feeling of inner emptiness, regardless of how much we fill our life with even experiences or material possessions or all these things. It's because there is something missing in our society. And from my point of view, it's just so completely obvious that we've somehow lost our connection to our soul and our connection to the divine or the universe in a very non-religious way, that this is our birthright. For some reason, we've shunned our birthright, or we've forgotten our birthright, would be more accurate way of saying it. And now it's the time to remember this. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to remember past lives or, this kind of fortune-telling type spirituality. It's more a sense of being in a state of embodiment and purpose and flow, because the times that we are actually living in now, they are extremely demanding spiritually, and most people's coping mechanisms are not working. And that's why this existential crisis is enveloping so many people, that they're really starting to really question the really big things. It's sort of something that just starts to sort of sit on your mind more and more. And it's not a question of just finding something in a book of philosophy or a great thinker or a mystic even. But these questions, they do have this essence of mysticism, which is really the spiritual path, to know and understand the universe, to experience that, to understand our true relationship, the depth of this relationship about who we are. This is the essence of mysticism, at least an aspect of it. This goes way beyond the idea of, UFOs and fortune telling, understanding your future, or all these sort of new age things, although that can be part of it. But it's really coming to terms with this idea of our soul purpose. And if that's not missing, in my view, it will not matter what everything else you have in your life may be great. There won't be any feeling of genuine fulfillment, genuine happiness. And this is the quest of what I'm talking about. It's not necessarily something that you have to give everything up and you can't work and have hobbies and enjoy all these sorts. It's not like that at all. It's to expand your awareness and expand your attention into this idea of this metaphysical purpose of life itself. And the coping mechanisms we have today, whether it's checking out, numbing out, avoiding displacement, all these sorts of, deep, very culturally acceptable ways of avoiding ourselves. We are experts at that here on this planet at the moment, is really a sense of not looking and understanding what is so obvious, that we are all children of the divine and we all have this birthright, but we have to take up the action and embody the frequency in order to claim the birthright. So I'm really at the point now of creating this webinar, which you can get. It's no charge, you just need to sign up for the newsletter, and I'll email out how you can watch that when it's going to be on, all the rest of it. But I guess the real question to think about is it's very confronting. It really is confronting. And my take on what's happening now is that we don't really have a framework for understanding this more generally. I'm speaking generally now, outside the context of religion itself. And I think that while religion might be helpful for some people and very useful, I think that the mass change that's coming is basically people are starting to actually reject the values, the principles, the very structures, the building blocks of what this society is based on. And it's coming from economic suffering more broadly. And this is the impetus for this spiritual awakening. But if it's just a little flame, the flame needs to expand and stabilize and grow and develop and be enhanced. But if you're one of these people that has this calling, then honor it. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. I know that in the beginning it can be very confusing because it's like my old life worked for me and now it's not working the way it used to. I don't understand why, because basically I'm still perhaps earning good money, or maybe I have a great relationship, or maybe people don't. I have good friends, and I live in a beautiful place. I've got great hobbies, or whatever. But it's almost like there is this ongoing feeling that somehow it doesn't seem to make me as happy or as fulfilled or as content. And if you're searching for greater contentment, greater inner peace, this is the framework, the building block for this entrance, for this birthing onto the spiritual path itself. And this is not the actual end, this is the beginning, because there's this kind of idea, particularly in the so-called awakening community, which is very limited from a consciousness point of view, that once I figure out all these issues about the fractional reserve banking system and who runs the planet and how, and all the methods and all this and that, then my awakening's over. And it's like, well, not really. I mean, it's perhaps a doorway for you personally into something deeper, more complete, more soul orientated. But if you're not getting the fruits of inner peace, contentment, happiness, purpose, then this is just like a kind of mental research type thing where you're just accumulating more information, which may or may not even bleed into the domain of knowledge. But this is a long, long way from classifying the experience of wisdom, the birthing of wisdom, the integrating of wisdom, which each and every spiritual path should give you as you progress. There should be a more and more integration and sense of wisdom that is coming from within. It's not like more information, more knowledge, following more people, following gurus, which we've seen has proven to be very, very problematic for a lot of people. It's coming from within, this inner guidance. And when we are reaching this state, and it's a process, it's in shades, then we start to have a more sense of true spiritual empowerment and true divine guidance and true integration into the flow of the universe, which for me, it's the most important thing of all as we move through this paradigm shift, because, I see a lot of emphasis on prepping and accumulating skills and everything, and I think all that's important. I really do. Growing food and becoming more self-reliant and all these sorts of things, which I do think is important, but nothing can replace wisdom. And this is something that eventually people who are going through this awakening will all start to consider, contemplate, and take action on the accumulation of more wisdom and its effects of purpose, of peace, of contentment, of purity, of being more open-hearted, being more compassionate. And they're the gifts that come through the integration of the spiritual path. So check out my website, anthonyo'flynn.com. It's a work in progress as well. Hope to see you again, and follow me for more content. Thanks for watching.